beloved Raghav Swami. He's been in, we know him last, I would say, almost now 7 years. When Swamiji, Chinninjari Swamiji came here, Adiyan had an connection with Raghav Swami. He was a student at that time in university. So we invited everyone to come to take the blessings, get the grace of Swamiji, and he called and said that he would like to be a student, can he join and all, and we were fortunate. That's how our journey started. He came to our house and he stayed with us. He got Sambandham Swamiji. So it is a good opportunity, great opportunity to introduce Raghav Swami. So Raghav Swami, known as by name Raghava Pavan, he's a gold medalist from 𝐿𝐿 University. He is a computer science by professional. He has done a master's and PhD in computer science from University of Minnesota. He studied his bachelor's in JNTU. He is right now currently working in as a lead researcher in Target Corporation, which is headquartered in Minneapolis. He served as also as an associate chair and a program committee member for several conferences, reviewed more than 30 plus of publications and journals. Highly qualified from an education perspective. And he got Sambandham with Swamiji when, as I mentioned, Swamiji came to Minneapolis in 2016. And at that time, he joined us, and then he was he got a connection with Swamiji, and he went to Houston or Dallas to Texas to get Swamiji, Samasranam with Swamiji. And he had extensive knowledge in a lot of our scriptures. And he's very unique person, I would say, I've met who has a good understanding about Bhagavad Gita from ISKCON Sampradayam and Advaita Sampradayam and Visishta Advaita Sampradayam. Because of his understanding and depth of it, he got moved with our Visishta Advaita Sampradayam, Ramanuja Bhashyan. He decided to get his Samasranam with Swamiji. He came into this, our Sampradayam. It's all, and he has, as I said, he has extensive knowledge about different scriptures. He had read the Bhagavatam stream. He has been, apart from that reading, he also has an extensive discourses he has been listening, be it Swamiji or Sri Satulur Gopalachara Swamiji, Bhagavatam and Brahma Sutras from Sri Samudra Rangarama Swamiji and all. So all three sampradayas, extensive kalakshepams, extensive reading, and he's also translated Sri Gopalachara Swami's Bhagavad Gita into English, and he is very well known for his discourses in Bhagavad Gita, and most sought after person in Minneapolis, I would say. A lot of students, lot of elders, he has taken sessions for that, and he has also given discourses and like our scriptures like Ramayanam, Bhagavatam, glories of Divya Prabandham, about Acharya Vaibhavam, and about our Sampradayam topics for last 7 years. In all our Andal Goshtis and all, when we do here during Dhanurmasam, he is definitely, his lectures are most awaited, and very fortunate in Minneapolis. Now I'm seeing that it is getting extended to nation level, and I pray Perumal to give him more and more knowledge, and because he has a passion of sharing that knowledge. It is good to have knowledge, but the passion should be there also to share the knowledge, the wisdom, which he is doing today, and very fortunate to introduce him. Jai Sriman. Adiyan Bhamandasan.
Yes, let us chant our Acharya's Thanyan before we start it. Kasyapanvaya sanjatam Narayana padasritam Sriman Narayanam vande Yatishvara Sriyajusham. Asmat Gurubhyo Namaha. Over to Swami.
Jai Sriman Narayana. Can you all hear me? I'm very humbled by this opportunity to speak among all of you. With all of your blessings, with Acharya's blessings, and the very warm and kind words of welcome, I would like to take this opportunity. To speak a few words about Sri Krishnavataram and how that is connected to Brahman in Vedanta. This is a very huge topic, but we will go slowly as time permits, and we will try to learn as much as we can as part of this. So I think we will get started for today's session. Om Asmat Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Namah Paramarishibhyo Namah Paramarishibhyah. Om Namah Paramarishibhyo Namah Paramarishibhyah. Srisailesa Dayapatram Dhibhaktiyadi Gunarnavam Yatindra Pravanam Vande Ramyajamataram Munim Lakshminatha Samarambham Nadhayamuna Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Yo Nityamachyuta Padambuja Yugma Rukma Vyamohatastaditarani Trunaya Mene Asmadgurur Bhagavatosya Dayeka Sindhoh Ramanujasya Charanau Sharanam Prapadye Mata Pita Yuvatayasthanaya Vibhutihi Sarvam Yadeva Niyamena Madanvayanam Adyasya Kulapatervakulabhiramam Srimattadanghriyugalam Pranamami Murtha Bhutam Sarascha Mahadahvaya Bhattanath Sri Bhaktisara Kulasekhara Yogi Vahan Bhaktangri Renu Parakalayatīndra Mishran Srimat Parankusamunim Pranatosmi Nityam Om Namah Sarva Vedanta Vedyaya Paramatmane Vedebhyo Vedadarshibhyo Maharshibhyo Namo Namah Shuklam Bharadharam Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasanavadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vighnopashantaye Yasyadvirada Vaktradya Parishadya Parasatam Vignam Nignanti Satatam Vishwaksenam Tamasraye Vyasam Vasishthanaptaram Sekte Pautramakalmasham Parasharatmajam Vande Sukatatam Taponidhim Nigamakalpatarorgalitam phalam Sukhamukhat Amrutadrava Samyutam Pibata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam Muhuraho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavuka Yam Pravrajantam Anupetam Apeta Krityam Dvaipayano Virahakatara Ajuhava Putreti Tanmayataya Taravobhineduhu Tam Sarvabhuta Hridayam Munimanatosmim Narayanam Namaskritya Narancheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Mudirayet Om Asmadgurubhyo Namaha. Are you able to hear me? Am I unmuted? Okay.
Yeah.
So the Upanishads are considered the essence of the Vedas, the quintessence of the Vedas. The Upanishads actually proclaim meditation on this tattva called Brahman in various ways. Some Upanishads say Karanam tu dhyeyaha, right? One should meditate on the cause, Karanam. There is another Upanishad that says Atmavare drashtavyaha, srotavyaha, mantavyaha, nididhyasitavyaha. It identifies this Paramatma Tattva as Atma, and it says one should realize this Atma, one should hear about this Atma, one should meditate upon this Atma. There is another Upanishad that says Anandam Brahmano Vidvan na bibheti kutaschaneti or na bibheti kadachaneti. That this Paramatma Tattva is called Ananda, and when one realizes this Ananda Tattva, then there is no further fear of samsara. One need not fear from anything. Then there is another portion of the Upanishad that says Rasovai Saha Rasagyeva Ayam Labdva Anandi Bhavati. That supreme Tattva is called Rasa. And when this Jiva Rasagyeva Ayam Labdva, when this Jiva attains that Tattva called Rasa, Anandi Bhavati, he will become happy. And there is another Upanishad that says Sat Eva Somya Idam Agra Asit Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. So there is this Tattva called Paramatma is identified by the words called Sat, Satyam, and so on. Again, there is Brahma Vidapnoti Param, another Upanishad says. So it says Brahma, those who know Brahma, they will attain the highest Tattva. Similarly, there are also other Upanishads that say, the reason we are going through this list is sometimes when we go through the Upanishads, it seems like there is a lot of confusion that happens even among great scholars. Even at the time of Vyasa, there was this confusion on whether the different tattvas being told in each of these Upanishads really refer to the same person or same tattva or different tattvas. So there is another Upanishad that says, Yova etad aksharam gargi viditva asman lokan preti sa brahmanaha. That means those who realize this tattva called akshara, So here this Upanishad is calling it as Akshara, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Asman Lokan Preti. So when they, depart from this world after knowing this tattva, then they are realized. Then there is another Upanishad, Chandogya, that says, Esha Samprasadaha, that means this Jiva, Asmat Sharirat Samuthaya, upon giving up this body, Param Jyoti Rupasampadya, upon attaining the supreme light, Svena Rupena Abhinishpadyate. It will shine in its own original form. So here this Chandogya Upanishad is identifying this as Param Jyoti, the supreme light. So again, there is this confusion, right? Again, we all know Purusha Suktam and so on. They say Vedahametam Purusham Mahantam. So there is a word called Purusha. Now, whether this Karanam, Atma, Ananda, Rasa, Sat, Brahma, Akshara, Param Jyoti, are all these referring to the same thing, or are they referring to different things, right? So we all recently have studied Artha Panchaka Jnanam, right? So there are 5 things that are told for anyone who wants to attain moksha, right? One who wants to attain moksha, he is called a mumukshu. So such a mumukshu should be aware of 5 things. What are they? Prapyasya Brahmano Rupam. The nature of the Brahman is something that they should be knowing. Praptuscha Pratyagatmanaha. Whoever is attaining, he should know his own nature. Praptuscha Pratyagatmanaha. Praptyupayam. What is the means to attain that Paramatma? Phalam Praptehe. What is the fruit upon attaining that Paramatma? Tatha Prapti Virodhicha. And one should also know what are standing as obstacles in the way of attaining that Paramatma. So these 5 things one should know if one really wants to attain moksham. What are they? Nature of Paramatma, nature of Jivatma, and then what is the fruit if one attains Paramatma? What is the means of attaining Paramatma? And then the 5th thing is, what are the obstacles that stand in the way of attaining that Paramatma? Vadanti sakala vedaha saitihasa puranakaha munayascha mahatmanaha veda vedanta vedinaha. So all the people, right, all the Vedas are really talking about these 5 things as far as a mumukshu is concerned. Right? Vedas have so many goals for so many people. Just like if we go to a supermarket, it is not that everything in the supermarket is meant for all of us. Depending upon who we are interested in a certain section. Or even if we go to an apparel section or something like that, there are different sizes, right? We have our own preference for a certain size, right? Just because the store has all kinds of sizes doesn't mean that everything is for us. Similarly, the Veda has so many different prescriptions for people with different kinds of mentalities, right? Among all such people, there are also aspirants of moksha, those who want to attain Paramatma. So for them, there are certain different kinds of recommendations, right? What everybody else needs to practice is called Samanya Dharma. Samanya Dharma means, in general, whenever anybody they enter a particular city, there are certain rules by which they have to function within that city. When anybody enters an organization or joins a company, there are certain rules and norms by which they have to function within that setting. Similarly, when one enters this world in a certain capacity as a human being, there are certain norms and rules by which one should abide by. So those are called dharmas. Then, in order to perform those dharmas, in order to perform those duties, one requires wealth. That is called artha. Then everybody, because we are sentient beings, because we have consciousness, we have desires, right? This is different from achetana. Achetana has no desires, but chaitanyam means we have consciousness. So therefore we have desires. So therefore there is kama. But this kama and artha should be subservient to dharma. So this is the normal rule for everybody. But there is something called Visesha Dharma. Visesha Dharma means there is someone who wants to come out of this cycle of following this dharma, artha, kama, and so on. So that is an aspirant of moksha. He is called a mumukshu. For him, there is a requirement that he should know these things. However, when a person, so for him to know these things from the Veda, so when we said, right, Vedanta means something that is the essence of the Veda. So if we look at the entire Veda, within the Veda, you will find all these terms referring to different entities, right? It appears as if they are referring to different entities. So someone needs to clarify to us whether these entities are really the same thing or they are different goals that one should attain, right? So that is a task that Vyasa has undertaken, right? So Vyasa has given us something called Brahma Sutras, right? So within this Brahma Sutras, what Vyasa Maharshi did was he tried to resolve the apparently contradictory statements of the different Upanishads, and then he tried to clarify what each of these terms really mean in the Brahma Sutras, right? He said how all of these really refer to the same entity called Brahman. So it is that Brahman that someone aspiring for moksha should actually know. What does know mean? So generally we find in the different aspects, right? Veditavyaha, Vedaha, or Vedaham. In this way we find the word Vedanam. Vedanam means knowing or realizing, right? What does this mean? Bhagavad Ramanuja, in his different commentaries, he clarifies that this Vedanam is not just theoretical knowing, that I also know God, or I know something about God, I have knowledge of God. He clarifies that this Vedanam is really the same as Upasanam. Upasanam means Upa-asanam. That means coming closer to that entity. One should know that entity inside out. It means one should meditate on that entity. One should really realize that entity completely. So that is what Vedanam really means. Even Shankaracharya, in his commentary to Taittiriya Upanishad, right, in one place called 𝐸𝐵𝐿𝐴 mahasagumhita vyakhyata veda, right? There is a passage like this that appears in the Taittiriya Upanishad. So there he also says that this Vedana really means upasana, just like he gives two examples there. He says, just like a Sishya does upasana of a guru, just like, a servant does upasana of a king, of a Raja. Similarly, this is what one should do, right? So there he clarifies that 𝐸𝐵𝐿𝐴 mahasagumhita vyakhyata veda. There he clarifies the meaning of the word Veda as upasana again. So both Acharyas, Shankaracharya and Ramanujacharya, really they are trying to say that Vedana means upasana. One should really do upasana. So great. So now we understood that one should do upasana of this tattva. And Vyasa, he clarified for us in the Brahma Sutras that all these terms are really referring to the same entity. But then different Upanishads are seemingly giving us different prescriptions when we look at this. One is calling it rasa, one is calling it sat, one is calling it akshara, one is calling it paramjyoti, one is calling it karanam, right? So why are the Upanishads using these different terms? It is because these Upanishads came from the realizations of different great sages, right? These are revealed things, right? No one knows who the author of these things are. No one knows who the author of the Veda is. These are just realized knowledge, right? So they have realized it this way. So then, therefore, one should try to really understand what this tattva is. So therefore, as part of Vedanta, different schools have all reached a common ground called Prasthana Trayi. Prasthana Trayi means three things called Shruti Prasthana, Smriti Prasthana, and Nyaya Prasthana. These are the three things that really compose Vedanta Shastra. Okay? Shruti Prasthana means Upanishads. Smriti Prasthana means Bhagavad Gita. And Nyaya Prasthana means Brahma Sutras. So Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, and Brahma Sutras, these three are really quintessential for anybody who wants to know those 5 things that we talked about, right? Knowing the nature of Paramatma, knowing the nature of Jivatma, knowing the fruit associated by realizing Paramatma, what is the means of attaining that Paramatma, and what obstacles stand in the way of attaining that Paramatma. So these are the things that are covered by, these are the subject matter of Upanishads exclusively. But previously we also saw a shloka from Harita Smriti, right? So it said that Vadanti sakala vedaha sa itihasa puranakaha munayascha mahatmanaha veda vedanta vedinaha. So everybody, like itihasas, Puranas, different sages, everybody is really saying these 5 things. But in the other texts, when we look at other texts like Itihasas, or if we look at Puranas, these are very interspersed. They are spread all over the place. It is not that for a mumukshu immediately they are evident. They are not concentrated and present as the core message. They are just dispersed everywhere. But when it comes to Vedanta, that is these three texts, right? Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, and Brahma Sutras, these three things are really the subject matter for these three texts. These three kinds of texts. So therefore, one should try to understand the nature of Brahman based on these three texts. But there is another challenge. So different acharyas have also told us that, who this tattva is. But before we get there, Arjuna asks a very interesting question in the Bhagavad Gita in the 12th chapter. He says, Evam satata yuktaye bhaktastvam paryupasate ye chapi aksharam avyaktam tesham ke yoga vittama. He says, who is a better yogi? One who meditates on some indefinite tattva, or one who meditates on a very definite tattva? One who does upasana of a very definite tattva, or one who does upasana of something very indefinite, something which is very imperceptible, something which is very much spread everywhere? Is it easy to perform upasana of this, or is it easy to perform upasana of that? Then to that, Krishna clarifies that ye tu aksharam anirdeshyam avyaktam paryupasate sarvatragam achintyancha kutastam achalam dhruvam. He says, and then he says eventually, klesho adhikatarastesham avyaktasakta chetasam. Avyakta hi gatir dukkham dehavadbhir avapyate. Dehavadbhihi, that means a person who is still within a body, embodied being like all of us. So for us, this is klesho adhikataraha. It is very, very difficult to meditate on something that is aksharam. That is, if someone tells us to meditate on something which is very infallible, what entity do we meditate upon? When someone says meditate on something that is anirdeshyam, anirdeshyam means indefinite, something that is not even determinable clearly. What will meditate upon? When someone says meditate on something that is avyaktam, imperceptible, then what will we meditate upon? So it is not easy to meditate upon this kind of entity. So for meditating, we need something called as something solid to meditate upon. That solid should be something that is all pleasing in nature, all beautiful in nature. It should have all kinds of good qualities. It should be very, very attractive in every sense, right? So such an entity is called Shubhashrayaha. Okay, it is called Shubhashrayaha. That means it is something that is all auspicious for us to take refuge in for performing our meditation. So when it comes to the question of who that entity is, Krishna declares within this Vedanta Shastra in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, Vedaischa sarvair ahameva vedyaha. He says, of all the Vedas, I am that entity to be known. Right? So in the Vishnu Sahasranama, we have a sloka called Bharabhrut Kathito Yogi, Yogisha Sarvakamadaha. In this way, the sloka runs, right? So there is a word called Kathitaha. Kathitaha means who is told, right? To this particular word, to Vishnu Sahasranama, different acharyas have written commentaries. So if we look at Shankaracharya's commentary to Vishnu Sahasranama Bhashya, he says, Vedadhibhir ayam eka eva paratvena kathita iti kathitaha. That means in the Vedas and other texts, ayam eka eva paratvena kathitaha. He alone is identified as the supreme. Therefore, he is called Kathitaha. This is the commentary by Shankaracharya. Right? He gives another commentary to the same word. He gives two meanings. Kathitaha means Vedadibhir ayam eka eva paratvena kathitaha iti kathitaha. Means he alone is identified in the Vedas and other texts as the supreme. So such a being is called Kathitaha. The second meaning he gives is Sarvair Vedaihi Kathita Itiva Kathitaha. That means he who is told in all the Vedas is also called Kathitaha. How exactly he is told? And he quotes certain passages, Shankaracharya, in his commentary. He says,
Sarve Veda Yat Padam Amananti. He quotes this from Katha Upanishad. So whatever pada or state is being declared by all the Vedas, Sarve Veda Yat Padam Amananti, right? And then Vedaischa Sarve Rahameva Vedyaha. This is told in Bhagavad Gita. In the Mahabharata, Vede Ramayane Chaiva Punye Bharate Bharatarishabha Adau Madhye Tatha Ante Sarvatra Vishnuhu Giyate. Vishnuhu Sarvatra Giyate. So this is what Mahabharata is saying. That in the Vedas, in the Mahabharata, in the Ramayana, everywhere, Adau, Madhye, Tatha, Ante, in the beginning, in the middle, in the end, everywhere, Vishnuhu Sarvatra Giyate. Vishnu is that Tattva being told. Great. So based on these passages, we identify that this Paratattva has been accepted by different acharyas as Vishnu. Whatever is being told as, this Brahman, Akshara, and Sat, and all these things. Vyasa tried to resolve them in the form of Brahma Sutras, and then acharyas who have written commentaries to Brahma Sutras and Bhagavad Gita and Upanishads, they have identified this Tattva to be Vishnu. So now we understand that that is the Tattva to be meditated upon. Then the topic that we are interested in discussing right now is, what is the connection between the Tattva, the words, the different terms used to indicate Brahman, and then Sri Krishnavataram, right? How exactly all these terms apply to Sri Krishnavataram? That is what we are trying to understand, right? Instead of meditating on something abstract, we are trying to understand how that word really is displayed by Krishna in the Krishnavataram. In the introduction to the Gita Bhashya, Bhagavad Ramanuja, he tries to explain to us, what was the thought process behind Narayana when he decided to appear as Krishna, right? He created the entire creation and then he remained quiet. And then after some time, he felt that, I, who am the goal to be achieved by those who want moksha, I am still inaccessible to the world, because if I remain somewhere in Vaikuntha, how will anybody be able to access me? Even in the Puranas, it is described that even to very great personalities like Brahma, Rudra, and so on, Paramatma is often not visible. Even in the Mahabharata, we find this. Only sometimes a great light is found, or sometimes only sound is heard, but they cannot really see Paramatma. So if he remains like that, then how can anybody attain him? So he felt compassionate. So then he decided that he wanted to redeem this world. So out of his own compassion, he decided to appear among various species due to his unbounded compassion, right? So that he may become accessible to all of us. It doesn't matter whether we are qualified people or unqualified people, right? There are those who love him. There are those who are neutral to him, really don't care whether he comes or doesn't come or anything. There are those who hate him also. Then there are animals, there are humans. Doesn't matter which species. He appeared in different species. He appeared as Matsya, he appeared as Kurma, he appeared as Varaha, right? He appeared as Narasimha. So in this way, he appeared among different species, among people, all kinds of people, out of his own compassion. In fact, he can choose to appear only to those who love him. But when he chose to take that avatara, he took it for the sake of everybody. He decided to redeem everybody. He was so compassionate in some of his avatars that as Vamana, using his foot, he decided to measure the entire universe, so that anybody who comes in contact with that foot, he thought he could deliver them. But for whatever unfortunate reason, not everybody could get that opportunity. Anyway, so in this way, Krishna, he appeared in different forms. Narayana appeared in different forms so that people could meditate on him. Great, very nice plan. But there is a challenge here. It is not that during Krishnavataram or during any other avatara, they had, the media coverage and presence that we have today, unfortunately, right? So today's media is so powerful that even before the event happens, they know it is happening. So they'll be present right there, right? As soon as the event happens, they'll give 3-minute footage. Again and again, they keep on giving breaking news, right? And they break all the secret codes associated with the plan, right? In this way, they publish everything. So in a short span of 2 to 3 minutes from an event happening in any remote part of the world, everything will be known to the entire world. But unfortunately, back then that coverage was not available, right? So even to people during Krishnavataram or Ramavataram or any other avatara, it took time for them to understand the activities that happened by some person somewhere in one of the villages there where he appeared, right? What to speak of people like us who appeared many, many generations later, right? Many of us think that this is not mythology. Some people, people from our generation, they don't really accept all this as truth, as history, right? There is a difference between history and mythology. Most people think that this is all mythology, right? It is coming from a myth. We don't know whether it has happened or not. It is said that, some person, Krishna lifted a huge mountain. Who knows? Why should we believe in something like that? Or something like that, right? People have all kinds of apprehensions, all kinds of, misunderstandings related to the different truths that are present in our scriptural literature, right? So then what is going to benefit all of us? So therefore, a person called Vyasa appeared. Right? This Vyasa was empowered directly in the Mahabharata. Vyasa himself tells who he was. A person called Apantaratamas. Apantaratamas means one who is beyond ignorance, one who is not subject to the various defects, right? Like Brahma, Pramada, Vipralambha, and so on. He is not subject to these kinds of defects that everybody else is subject to. Right? We are subject to illusion. Sometimes we see something and we think that this is what this is, and we publish that news. But sometimes it may be wrong. We may be wrong, right? Similarly, we may be negligent. It may be right there, but we may not carefully see. So in this way, we are subject to certain defects. But this Apantaratama is a person who is beyond those defects. So such a person was chosen by Paramatma, and he was empowered by Paramatma to take up the task of compiling the Veda, editing the Veda, and then compiling the various Puranas, right? Presenting the history in the form of Mahabharata and so on. So such a person appeared as Vyasa appears in different ages, right? The person who we are closest to is called Krishnadvaipayana Vyasa. So in the history of Krishnadvaipayana Vyasa, right, he did a lot to benefit us. First of all, he decided to, write one huge Veda, so that this entire body of knowledge is available to us. Then he himself felt, who is qualified to study such a huge text? Who has the ability to study such a huge text? So he decided to edit it and divide it into 4 parts, right? And then he gave each part to different sages, right? As sages parampara. In this way, he split the Veda into 4 parts. And then still, Veda is only accessible to people who have certain knowledge, right? Of Chandas, of Jyotisha, right? In this way, of Siksha, Vyakarana. In this way, certain qualifications are necessary to understand the Veda. Otherwise, the Veda will not be understood. Just like if you go to a music class, for instance, right? They have this music book. Not everybody can understand. Those who know those symbols, they can easily see those symbols and play that song. But those who don't know, they will not be able to follow anything. In this way, even though the Veda may say something, everybody is not qualified to understand what the Veda is really saying. So he decided to write Upabrahmanas to Veda. Itihasa Puranabhyam Vedam Sam Upabrahmayet, he says in the Mahabharata. He has decided to compile the Itihasa called Mahabharata and different Puranas as explanations for Veda, to clarify the different things that are told in the Veda. Right? He decided to do that. So within this, after compiling Mahabharata, he set out by saying Narayana Katham Imam. I'm going to tell the story of Narayana, because that's the goal, right? But after writing the entire Mahabharata, he felt that, Asat Kirtana Kantara Parivartana Pamsulam Vacham Sauri Kathalapa Ganga Eva Punimahe. So he really felt that, Ayyo, what have I done? After writing all these things, he really felt that he went on describing the Vamsacharitas, the dynasties of so many people, right? All kinds of people, sinful people, and so many people, so many different kinds of kings. He felt his tongue got polluted. So now he decided to wash his tongue with the holy waters of Ganga, called Shauri Katha, means Harikatha. So using Harikatha, he wanted to wash his tongue. So then he decided to write, Harivamsa Purana. But even after that, he was still feeling very despondent. After compiling so many Puranas, he has compiled already the entire body of Puranas. He has compiled the Itihasa. He has compiled the Veda. Still, there was some lacuna in his heart. This is just like, if there is the lady of the house or someone, right, who is preparing all kinds of preparations when some guest is about to come, they still feel some dissatisfaction that maybe I should prepare one more item, maybe I should prepare one more sweet, or maybe I should, some topping is missing, therefore the taste will not be perfect. So in this way, they keep worrying, right? So anybody who is tasked with anything, who has an interest in that task, right, who feel responsible for that task, always feel some sense of incompleteness. They feel that there is something I have not done right. Maybe this is not right. I should have done better. I should have done something better. In this way, Vyasa was also feeling despondent after compiling all these things. And then he himself began to wonder, because Vyasa is no ordinary person. It's not that somebody else needs to, go through the works of Vyasa and then say, oh, this is the mistake, right? He is a very intelligent person. He knows what the mistake he has done was. So he was reflecting, Kimva Bhagavata Dharma na prayena nirupitaha. So he was feeling that maybe I have not described the Bhagavata Dharma very explicitly. This Bhagavata Dharma is the Dharma that is needed for Bhagavatas to attain moksha, right? Maybe I have not described that explicitly. After I have described so many things, but this is not something I have described explicitly. Right then Narada appears. And Narada, he says, Bhavata anudita prayam yasho bhagavato amalam. So he confirms exactly the suspicion that Vyasa was going through in his heart. He says, Bhavata anudita prayam yasho bhagavato amalam. The supreme glories, the pure glories of the Lord have not been described by you, right? You have described so many things, but you have not described whatever is necessary. Why? Yatha dharmadayaschartha munivarya anukirtita na tatha vasudevasya mahimahi anuvarnita. He says you have described dharma, artha, kama, all these things, munivarya anukirtita. You are a very great sage, right? You are a very qualified person. So you have repeatedly described these things again and again, right? If you look at Mahabharata, different Puranas and so on, again you keep getting these dharmas on how to perform charities, or what is the merit associated with this, what are the duties of a kshatriya. These are repeated themes that keep coming again and again and again in different sections, right? So this is anukirtita. Anukirtita means there is always a constant repeated description of the same thing. However, you have missed out on something. Na tatha vasudevasya mahimahi anuvarnita. So here also he uses a very interesting phrase. Anuvarnita, he says. He could have used the word varnitaha. Vasudeva Mahima, you have not described, he could have said. But Anuvarnita, why is he saying that? What is this tattva called Vasudeva tattva? Vasudeva tattva is that Vasati iti Vasu, Divyate iti Devaha. It is something that exists everywhere and shines without Desha, Kala, Vastu Paricheda. That means this Vasudeva tattva is that tattva that exists at all places, at all times, in every substance. So this is that tattva called Vasudeva tattva. Then how is it possible for anybody to miss out describing this tattva even for one line or one word? Because this is that tattva which is present everywhere, at all times, in every place. But if Vyasa only managed to describe this tattva occasionally, that means he has missed out a significant portion of what is really necessary, right? He just focused on the stories and histories and morals and all these things. But this was not correctly done by him. So therefore, Narada describes that Naishkarmyam api achyuta bhava varjitam na shobhate jnanam alam niranjanam. He says that even though you may have described the path of self-realization, you may have documented that, achyuta bhava varjitam, if it is deprived of devotion to Lord Achyuta, na shobhate jnanam. So then that knowledge is not very useful, because it will be very difficult for people to practice something like that, just as what we have discussed. Then what to speak? Kuta puna shasvad abhadram ishvare nacharpitam karma yadapya karanam. So he says, then what is the use of activities? That is what Vyasa described, how to perform different sacrifices, what is the result of performing different yajnas, different yagas, different vratas. This is what really is present everywhere in the scripture, right? And what lokas one will attain as a result of performing these different, jyotishto mena swarga kamo yajeta. Similarly, karyarya vrishti kamo yajeta. In this way, you perform this, you will attain this. You do this, you will get this result. In this way, there is description after description of different activities. But if all these activities are performed by different people, but they are not offered to Vasudeva, then what is the use of those activities as far as moksham is concerned? So this is what he is saying, right? And then he also says, idam hi pumsas tapasas shrutasya va svishtasya suktasya cha buddhidattayoho avichuto artha kavibhir nirupito yaduttama shloka gunanuvarnanam. The purpose of all these austerities, of all these sacrifices, of all these charities is really, they should culminate in Uttama Shloka Gunanu Varnanam, in describing or realizing the glories of the Tattva called Vasudeva Tattva. If they do not culminate in that, then it is completely useless. Right now, is that present? Yes. Vichakshanosya arhati veditum vibhor anantaparasya nivrittitas sukham pravartamanasya gunair anatmanas tato bhavan darshaya cheshtitam vibhoho. So what he is saying is, someone who is very, very qualified, vichakshanaha, someone who can greatly, deeply, penetratively, someone who can see through things, such a person can understand that this is really the glory of Vasudeva. It is he who has done it. But anatmanaha, someone who is not connected to Paramatma, for such a person, you have to explicitly describe that this happened because of Paramatma, right? For instance, in the Mahabharata, if we see, there is a very different incidents have happened to the Pandavas, right? Pandavas got repeatedly saved again and again, right? Vishan, they were poisoned, right? Bhima was poisoned. He was thrown into the river. Somehow he got saved. Mahagne, right? The great fire was set to the house in which a lakh house was built for them specifically, and they were placed in that house. And then the plan was to somehow burn that house, and they could get destroyed overnight, right? Purushada Darshanat, a man-eating demon was there, Hidimba, right? He came and, he decided, there was an encounter of the Pandavas with Hidimba. Purushada Darshanat, Asat Sambhayam, Vanavasa Kritsrita, right? And then this Asat Sabha, where Draupadi was insulted in front of everybody, right? In this way, the Pandavas repeatedly faced danger after danger after danger, right? Vanavasa Kritsrita, they were sent to Vanavasa. Mride Aneka Maharadastrato. Right? In the war, they were faced with many great warriors. They were not ordinary people, right? There are explicit descriptions in the Mahabharata how later on it was just Krishna who was protecting the chariot from being burnt, right? So as soon as Arjuna stepped out, Krishna asked Arjuna to step out first, and then finally, as soon as Krishna jumped out of the chariot just burned to ashes. That means he was really causing that protection, right? Draunyastratascha. So in this way, Kunti Devi was realizing that finally, even Drauni, that means Dronacharya's son, Ashwadhama, he released a Brahmastra so that the last, descendant of that Vamsa, Parikshit, could also be killed, right? In this way, they had faced so many dangers. But if we examine Mahabharata, it is not very clear that it was exactly Krishna who saved them in all of these instances, right? When Bhima was poisoned and he was brought out of the river, it appears that, that connection with grandfather and so on, somehow that was identified, and therefore he got saved. And then similarly, when we see, when that lakh house was set on fire, we find that Vidura is the person who plays a very key role there. So it appears as if Vidura is the person who saved them. But Kunti Devi, she was a Vichakshana. She could clearly see through how in each of those instances, she says, Harebhi Rakshitaha. This is the sloka that appears in Bhagavata Purana. In the Mahabharata, if we see even in the instance of Draupadi, right? Draupadi Vastrapaharanam, there also we find that Dharma protected Draupadi. Right? The dharma is the thing that saved Draupadi. There also we do not find Krishna as saying. But somewhere else, at a later point, we find another sloka, Krishnam Dharmam Sanatanam, that the dharma is none other than Krishna. So it is not explicit for one to easily put things together and understand that it is the same Krishna who is really affecting every one of these things. Right? So Mahabharata has been written like that. So therefore, there was a need for Vyasa to write another text explicitly calling out the glories of Paramatma. And ultimately, his whole goal was to describe Krishnavatara. Therefore, even in the beginning of Bhagavata Purana, when it was asked, right, the different sages actually asked explicitly, could you please describe the glories of Krishna? Why has Krishna appeared as the son of Vasudeva and Devaki? Right? So that was the real purpose. So that means this time, Vyasa decided to compile a text called a Bhagavata Purana, which is really the sum and substance of all other Puranas, of whatever Itihasa is supposed to offer, of whatever Vedanta is supposed to offer, right? He decided to present everything tied to the various avatars, and particularly Krishna Avatara. Because every other avatara, if you see, at most, we find 10 or 11 chapters dedicated to some avatars, that too very rarely. Most avatars end in like 3 or 4 adhyayas. But Krishna Avatara, he spends 90 chapters describing Krishna Avatara. That means we can just understand how keen Vyasa was, how keenly repentant Vyasa was, that he wanted to really make up for his mistake and explicitly identify, meditate on all the truths of Upanishad, and then describe how Krishna Avatara reflects every one of those characteristics. Our goal for the next few days is really to understand how these different terms, we will pick some of these terms and we will go through certain pastimes from Krishna Avatara, and we will try to see how Krishna Avatara reflects each one of these characteristics, right? So that our meditation along the lines of Upanishads becomes successful, right? So that we will be able to achieve whatever the sages wanted us to achieve through the Upanishads, right? That is the goal of this discussion. So it's almost 8:23. I don't know if I should continue further or if I should pause here. Satish Swami, like your feedback.
Yeah, continue, Swami. 5 more minutes.
So we will start with a term called rasa in the Taittiriya Upanishad, right? Taittiriya Upanishad says, raso vai saha rasaghyeva ayam labdhva anandi bhavati. So Taittiriya Upanishad identifies this Paratattva as rasa. What does the word rasa mean? The word rasa means rasa snehane, aswadane. That which absorbs us completely into it and makes us forget everything else. That is called rasa. What is it? It makes us absorb into it completely and makes us forget everything else. For instance, right, there are navarasas that are described, right? Ascharya, Adbhuta, Bhayanaka, Hasya rasa, Bhibhatsa rasa, and so on, right? When we watch a comedy show, we may be going through a lot of difficulty in our life, but just for that half an hour or for that 2 hours of a movie filled with comedy, we will forget everything and laugh heartily, right? Similarly, if we watch a horror movie, right, we'll be filled with fear for those 2 hours, forgetting everything else. It's an illusionary setting, right? It's not that in real life all those ghosts or ghostly creatures are present, that we are dealing with every day. But for those 2 hours, we really feel that every tiny sound is associated with something coming and attacking or something like that, right? That means we are getting absorbed into it. Similarly, a very common occurrence for those who have babies and kids, kids often get injured here and there. They get some injury or the other. Parents immediately take them and say, it's not for you, it's for me. They'll try to divert them to something. They'll try to, show something with special effects or some toy and so on. Immediately the child will stop crying and they'll get absorbed in it. So what is happening in each of these things? There is a certain rasa, right? That means we are completely getting absorbed in that thing and then we are forgetting everything else, right? The same is true with shadrasas also, right? Different tastes, right? If there is a little bit of extra salt, everybody will say it is very salty, it's very salty, I cannot eat it, right? That is a problem. No matter how good every other spice is, it may have perfectly, been put into that particular dish, but just if salt is excess, everybody will say it is salty. That means salty taste has overpowered every other taste. Similarly, a little bit of extra chili powder or spice, everybody will say this is very spicy, right? That means one taste is overpowering every other taste and making everybody absorbed into it and forget everything else. So that's why that is also called rasa. So how exactly Krishna did this, right? That we want to see in this pastime, right? In the 7th canto of Bhagavata Purana, there is a Parikshit, he asks Sukha Maharshi a very interesting question, that Samam Priya Suhrud Brahman, this Paramatma Tattva is often described as very equal, neutral, right? How come it is always the case that he's always favoring the devatas and he's always against the rakshasas? This was his question. How is it that he's always favoring these people and always against the rakshasas? Because previously in the 6th canto, there were stories such as Vritrasura Vadha and other things that were described, right? Where it appeared that Paramatma was favoring Indra and Paramatma was against Vritrasura, where indeed Vritrasura was a devotee, right? It was always the case that, demons were not being supported and devotees were being supported, devatas were being supported. To this, Shuka Maharshi answers by saying that this is a very good question. A similar question was asked. In this connection, I want to narrate to you a historical incident that happened at the time of Rajasuya sacrifice, right? This was being performed by Yudhishthira. In that assembly, everybody in that assembly decided to make Krishna as the recipient of Agra Puja in that sacrifice. There was only one person who had a problem. Even Duryodhana did not have a problem. There was only one person who had a problem. That was Shishupala. He criticized Krishna to such an extent that it was unbearable to everybody in the assembly there. So at that time, Shishupala Vadha has taken place, right? Krishna decided to finish Shishupala, right? At that time, something very interesting happened, right? Shishupala's Atma entered from his body. Everybody saw that Jyoti was passing from his body and it entered into the foot of Krishna. And then Yudhishthira wondered in great surprise, right? He immediately asked, how is it that a person who has scolded Krishna to this extent, he should have got some kind of a mouth disease, some kind of a mouth cancer or something like that, or at least he should have ended up in hell. That would have been a satisfactory result. How is it that this person attained moksha? Then Narada answers that this is the nature of Paratattva. The nature of Paratattva is that he is equal to everyone. The Krishnavataram in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, Samoham sarvabhuteshu name dveshyosti na priyaha. Everybody is equal to me. It is not that somebody is more to me and somebody is less to me. In fact, that is exactly the kind of nature that the Supreme Being should display. Right? If the Supreme Being is always favorable to some people and unfavorable to others, then that means Supreme Being is always partial by default. Right? Such a being cannot be supreme. Someone who is partial cannot be supreme. So he is always equal to everybody. Right? But no matter, there is only one condition that is required, that one should constantly meditate on him. Somehow or the other. This is exactly what Narada said. Tasmat kenapi upayena mana krishne niveshayet. He said, it doesn't matter how you meditate on him. Somehow or the other, you just fix your mind on him. Look at this Shishupala. What did he do? At every point, he has recited Krishna Ashtottara Shatanamavali. Right? He scolded something and he said Krishna. Because in his mind, he did not want to just give scoldings, because someone who joined the crowd in between, he may think who these scoldings are for, they will not understand. He was very intelligent. Everybody should follow that every scolding is meant for Krishna. So after every scolding, he used to use the word Krishna once. So as far as Krishna is concerned, he just saw that this is my Ashtottara Satnamavali. Right? He is not looking at the scoldings. He's only looking at how many times this person has uttered the word Krishna. Right? So therefore, he decided to give moksha. Right? Same is the case with even Putana. Right? She was meditating that somehow or the other I have to find this child. Somehow or the other I have to find this child. She wanted to give him poison. That's another story. But then her concentration was fixed on Krishna at the time of death. Therefore, she also attained moksha. So he says, Tasmat Vairanubandhena Nirvairena Bhayena va Snehat Kamena va Yunjat Kathanchit Nekshate Pruthak. So it doesn't matter. Tasmat Vaira, out of enmity, you want to remember him, remember. Some people, they have enmity towards someone. All the time they keep thinking about that person. Oh, that person did this, such a rascal. He should be, if that person comes in front of me, in this way, they'll constantly keep thinking about that person. Anubandhena. Someone feels a relationship. They have just discovered that this person is a relative of mine and that person is a great person. Immediately feels, he's my relative. Do you know what? He's my relative. In this way, he keeps saying everybody. So that relationship is something that person keeps on remembering again and again. Nirvairena, out of devotion, somebody may remember. Bhayenava, if someone is afraid of someone or something, out of that fear, they constantly keep remembering that thing. Right? Similarly, Snehat, out of friendship, someone might constantly think about someone. Kamenava, out of lust, somebody could think about someone. Right? In this way, out of kamat, dveshat, bhayat, snehat, yadha bhakti ishvare manaha aveshya tad agam hitva. In this way, out of any one of these feelings, right? Somehow or the other, if we are able to meditate on the Lord, agam hitva, one's sins will go away. Bahavaha tad gatim gataha. Many people have attained him like that. When Yudhishthira may ask, how is it that so many people have attained? To that, Narada is giving examples. Gopya kamat. Right? The Gopikas, they have always desired him out of love for him. So constantly they thought about him out of love. Bhayat Kamsaha. Kamsa, at every moment, we are going to discuss that maybe tomorrow. How out of great fear, no matter what Kamsa did or no matter what Kamsa saw, he only remembered Krishna. Dveshat Chaidyadayo Nripaha. These kings like Shishupala, out of enmity, out of extreme hatred towards Krishna, envy towards Krishna, they constantly remembered Krishna. Sambandhat Vrishnayaha. So everybody in the dynasty of Vrishni, they constantly meditated upon their relationship with Vasudeva, who has appeared in their dynasty. Snehat Yuyam. You people out of the Pandavas, right? The affection that you have for him, that is what is making you people constantly remember him. Bhaktya Vayam Vibho. People like us, Narada and so on, out of devotion, they have meditated on him. All of us are going to attain the same result because we have finally ended up meditating on him. In this connection, how exactly, how Kamsa's pastime is something that we are going to discuss in more detail tomorrow. How, different, the same tattva called Krishna tattva appeared and manifested different rasas for different people who were present in the assembly. And how Vyasa very beautifully brings out the meaning of the word rasa in the Taittiriya Upanishad, in the pastime of the killing of Kamsa. So that we will learn tomorrow. Om Haraye Namaha. Om Haraye Namaha. Om Haraye Namaha. Om Asmadgurubhyo Namaha.
Jai Sriman Narayana. Jai Sriman Narayana. It was looking like you were sitting in a drone and going through the universal scriptures garden. So overlooking everything from there, and then we slowly trying to land into one small park, which is of Rasa. So the Rasa park, we need to enjoy it tomorrow. So you wonderfully explained what are going to be the topics. So every day we are going to see the different ways Upanishads have given about the Paramatma, right?
Yes.
So we're going to deal with the Rasa tomorrow, then the Jyoti, right? And then also we have
Karanam.
Right? So wonderful explanation. So it's a lot of examples when you are giving it. It will be more enjoyable also, everybody. Like it can really hook up. So we just land into a park now after having a nice ride. Wonderful, Swami.
Thank you.
I don't know how many references, how many places we have seen within this less than 1 hour of talk. Thank you so much, Raghav Swami.
Thank you.
Splendid, wonderful journey. So I open the lines for, I request people who are joined for the first time or second time, who knows him or doesn't know him, just tell something about it. It'll always be an encouragement for upcoming, our Raghav Swami. It's a really wonderful opportunity. We are taking it from here. So one time we were sitting on the other side, now we are sitting in the different chair today. Jai Sriman Narayana.
Jai Sriman Narayana. Again, Raghav Swami, అనేక ధన్యవాదములు. It was very much bhagyam to get that gnanam from you regarding the Brahman. You took us through the ride as Swami mentioned. So you started and you kind of clearly mentioned the connections with all the Upanishads, everything, Vedas and Brahma Sutras, how it is, along with Bhagavad Gita. So what is Shruti, Smruti and Nyaya. So it is like clearly mentioned. So it was very much, you took us in like as like it's some like a ride. As Swamin said, it's really true. So and you landed us in that park. So I really echo that again. So yeah, it was very beautiful song. So I was remembering those days of Bhagavad Gita that we were doing. So thank you so much.
Chari Swami,
Jai
Chari
Sriman.
Hey,
Venkatesa
Jai
garu.
Sriman. That's all.
Swami.
He looked so familiar to me. I was wondering.
Yeah, he came to Houston for our Swamiji's
Acha, I must
workshop.
have met him then.
Yes, must have been.
He looks exactly like one of my close cousins. I said, oh my God, I thought. It was phenomenal, Swami, very nicely done. And I always think about rasam as the essence. If you squeeze a fruit, you get the rasam. And that is what really the taste of the fruit is on the rasam itself. And you said the different tastes come from the rasam. So my mother used to say pebere ramarasam. I used to say pebere palarasam. So that was very beautiful. Well done, Swami. Jai Sriman. After a long time, I am coming back to this. I really, really enjoyed it today. God bless. Jai Sriman.
Yes, Narayana. Anyone else like to talk something, Andy? Anyone else? Venkatreddy garu, how are you feeling about Venkatreddy Anala?
Satish garu నేను ఎక్కడో మొత్తం సపోర్ట్ ఉన్నాను. I'm good with.
Oh, okay, wonderful. Okay. Thank you. Chandrika, you have anything to talk about? Chandrika?
Jai Sriman Narayana. And long back, we listened to Bhagavad Gita from Swami. Again, we got a chance to listen some more, get some more gnanam from Swami. Thank you so much, Swami. It was a beautiful explanation. I missed the first half an hour, but I really enjoyed the second part, second half an hour. I want to listen again. I'm so sorry. I'm so thankful for you, Swami. Thank you. Thank you so much, Swami. Adiyan. Bhagyam.
Dasoham Raghavacharya garu got to listen to a few sessions of Bhagavad Gita from you several years ago, and really missed those sessions.
Yeah, really, we missed a lot. We learned so much from you, Swami, and that day for 𝐿𝐿𝐴𝐺 sessions and all, we learned so much.
Okay, so let's conclude it then, Swami. Let's do the Acharya Mangala Shasana, and then tomorrow again we will meet it. Please note the timing. We, for his convenience, because he has got some other obligations after 8:30, so we moved the time 30 minutes. So it's from 7:30 to 8:30. Let's all join tomorrow. विशिष्टाद्वैत सिद्धांत प्रचारैक विहारिणे श्रीमन्नारायणाचार्य स्वामिने नित्यमंगलम् यावत् प्रपंच संपूज्य चरणाय महात्मने श्रीमन्नारायणाचार्य यतिराजाय मंगलम् मंगलाशासन परैः मदाचार्य पुरोगमैः सर्वैश्च पूर्वैराचार्यैः सत्कृतायास्तु मंगलम् सद्गुरुभ्यो नमः जय श्रीमन्नारायण
Jai Sriman.
Jai Sriman.
Jai Sriman.
Jai Sriman.
See you all tomorrow.